Guys, Mr. Thibodeau here. So I wanted to go over a little bit of your reading and just kind of do some clarification stuff. So first off, here we have a picture of Roanoke here, and they have this sort of mystery, the lost colony of Roanoke, where as these colonists tried to colonize, they had a very difficult time. One group goes back to England to try and get supplies, and for one reason or another is unable to return for like 3 years. By the time they get back, there's no sign at all of their colony, and they don't know where it went. There's some ideas that maybe they moved in with the Native Americans, maybe they were killed by various Native Americans, maybe they were killed by the Spanish. It was a dangerous time, and it's hard to figure out where they went. Now, a few things I wanted to call attention to. So this is about 100 years after Columbus brought back news that, hey, there is a huge continent out here that we can hang out with. Now, of course, he thought that he found India. I do want to point out there's a common misconception that Columbus was like, hey, the world is round, and everyone else is like, no, the world is flat, you're a dummy. That's actually entirely false. Most people at that time, especially sailors, 100% knew the world was round. Okay, and in fact, about 400 years before the time of what would be Jesus, around 400 BC, there was a Greek philosopher and scientist who actually he figured out the circumference of Earth by the mile, and I think he was just off by like 550 miles, like pretty, like he almost got it. People absolutely knew that the Earth was round, especially sailors. Any scientist, any person of learning knew the world was round, and they knew it was huge, right? They knew how big around it was because of this ancient scientist and astronomer who what he did, by the way, to figure out how big the world was is he noticed at high noon in Alexandria that the sun was directly above and there would be no shadow. And then at that exact same time, in a town about a few miles away, suddenly there was a shadow, and the shadow was just a small angle on the ground. And he used the difference of that to be able to figure out through mathematics, and it's something that we'll actually do ourselves later this year in one of the math community days, to figure out the circumference of the world. So they knew it was huge. Now, the thing that Columbus did is he actually was like, no, the world is round, but it's small. And he used this map from a Russian dude that said that the Earth was round, but pretty small. And so he thought he could sail around it, that 3 months sailing into the west would eventually bring him around to the east. So he was completely wrong, and everyone else was right, that it was, the size of the Earth is really massive. But he lucked out because he found the New World instead. He found the Americas. All right, so little factoid for you there. So they try and colonize Roanoke. They try and get some land from the Native Americans there to settle and to try to get wood. Wood is a huge thing that they need. A lot of the forests in Europe have been kind of cut down, so they needed wood. They needed various agriculture. They kept looking for gold. There was this bizarre thought that the New World was just all gold all the time, and so people kept trying to search for gold, even though there was pretty little, especially in North America, at least on the coast. All right. Things go bad pretty quickly. They kill a Native American chief, and that wasn't a good idea. So they have to run away. They come back. They try again. And like we said, that there's the whole thing about where or not whatever happened to that colony. I want to talk a little bit about this Jamestown Charter. So the first like colony here in the Americas from the English. Spanish had been doing it for a long time. From the English is a trading colony. They're here to make money. Okay. So they came to America to make money, to get cash monies. Let's see. So they tried to work hard on that. He succeeded in bringing about a new type of tobacco, which was really successful for them to grow in Virginia. And that was where they really started to actually make money and to find a lot of value. They brought a lot of folks over as indentured servants. This is basically slaves with a time limit. This is mostly white folks at this point, where they're brought over, and many of them agreed to this. Some of them did not. Some of them were like, "We'll send you to jail, or we'll kill you, or you can go to Americas." At this point, going to the Americas and working in these colonies was practically a death sentence. Like 60% of folks died, something like that. So it was, it was a big deal. But they needed people to work. They needed labor. So they would either, and also living in England kind of sucked as well. So a lot of people decided to go for it or were coerced into going for it. When these people are coming over here as indentured servants, as these slaves, essentially, many of them are treated extraordinarily poorly, very, very bad. When you are in charge of another person's life, and you own them essentially, we find time and time again that they get treated very poorly. So that is an unfortunate part of our history, but most of these folks were essentially given their freedom eventually, and were able to buy their own land and have their own things here. So some of them succeeded, and some of them did not. Let's see. I wanted to look a little bit about here. A few things. I'd never noticed this until this thing said it. One, sorry that it's so hard to read here. This is a very difficult text to go over for this black font on this white. But I never realized that the opposite sides of the dice always equal 7. I don't know why that never occurred to me. So if 5 is here, then the 2 is on the other side. If 3 is here, then 4 is on the other side. That's interesting. This symbol came from Nuremberg, Germany, which means that trade was happening quite drastically. This question here, why might the English have felt it was safer to drink wine than water in the early 1600s? This is actually true for most of history. Actually, the Greeks started this, and even before. Their wine was greatly watered down, but they generally did not drink that much water. And in fact, in Portland's history, we were known for drinking beer at work in the logging industry, and not having clean water. Folks would always be drinking beer every day. Simon Benson of the Benson Bubblers in downtown Portland was one of the first philanthropists to say, "Hey, what if we gave you clean water so you weren't drunk at work all the time?" And the main reason it's that clean water. Alcohol is a disinfectant. So by drinking water mixed with alcohol, you were actually guaranteeing that you did not get a disease from the water you drank. So a lot of folks drank wine or various other waters mixed with alcohol in order to stay safe when they didn't trust the water. They didn't really quite understand that you could boil the water for a few minutes to be able to make sure it was safe that way. It wasn't until later that they really figured that out. So I really like this story about this guy who kind of changed the idea of the Roanoke and kind of this the Jamestown stuff. Sorry, not Roanoke, Jamestown. I like it because history is evolving. We we make guesses about what happened in the past, but we don't always know. And the best way to prove you have a mind is to change it. That's one of my favorite little quotes. And in history, in science, we're constantly changing our minds. We're getting new information, and we make a new guess, a new hypothesis about what happened or what will happen. And so here, this guy, William Kelso, comes up with new information about the Jamestown's founding. And we change our textbooks, our history books. History books change way more than you'd expect them to because we get more information, we add in more information, we find the truth about something. So it's kind of interesting to know that and to know that history evolves like that. So we'll get into that later. But that's all it is for now. Just wanted to kind of give you a few little steps here about the history and what's going on. Yeah. Anyway, have a good one, guys.